Hi there, this is Josh from Literary Gladiators, and today I'm here with a book review. The book that I'm going to be reviewing is What Happened to Rachel Riley by Claire Swinarski. And I select this book as part of my Newbery Medal nominee reading that I'm engaging in. I referred to a list on Goodreads that made mention to books that could potentially win the Newbery Medal or win an honor in 2024, and these were chapter books for younger readers around the ages of 14 and under that were published in 2023. And this was actually the very first one that I read, and I thought it was amazing. I thought that it did a brilliant job covering the subject matter that it set out to cover, plus make for a story that was heartfelt and entertaining. The premise of the story pertains to the central character, who is actually a 12-year-old 8th grader named Anna Hunt. Anna Hunt just moved to Madison, Wisconsin from Chicago with her parents, Jamie and Maja Hunt, and her older sister, Nika, which is short for Nicola. And Swinarski herself is from Madison, Wisconsin, but Anna moved here. Her older sister, Nika, is a computer genius. Her mother, Maja, is a Polish immigrant, but she is also an attorney that teaches law at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. While her father is also an attorney, but he constructs contracts and is able to work from home. He's also a good chef, and the way that it's depicted in here, I really was amazed. I just love the way that they described the way he put together a spaghetti meal, and I love the commentary on the authenticity of the Parmigiana cheese. But Anna Hunt is taking a social issues class, and she's assigned by her teacher, Miss Odell, to do an un-essay, which means they can do anything they want as long as it's not an essay. For instance, her front, when given trouble about her one assignment, is a presentation on recycling. But she's inspired through interactions that are taking place within her school to do something else. And it happens to be about a student at the school named Rachel Riley, who the year before was one of the most popular students, but at this point she has fallen from grace. She's a para and an outcast. But Anna sees her as being a nice person. She's in her algebra class. She was very kind to her on the first day, helping lead her to her class, and she just happens to stay to herself and sits on her own and reads. But mixing that with her enthusiasm for a favorite podcast of hers, conducted by Mimi Miller, called Stories of Our Lives with Mimi Miller, Anna Hunt decided she wanted to do her un-essay on what happened to Rachel Riley, and gather the evidence as to what it was that exactly happened. But she does begin to realize that when you're going towards something that when you're going toward something that is very strong and touchy per se, there is going to be some backlash, and we really get a great sense of the environment that very much happens to be middle school, and just the environment and society as a whole, as the way that they pertain to how they handle certain circumstances. I thought this book was amazing, and especially how they fleshed out the characters. I really admired how it was structured in a freestyle format. Some of the methods that they use include first-person narration from Anna, but also emails, texts, notes, podcast submissions, letters, flyers, among other modes of interacting and storytelling, which I thought were brilliant. For instance, something of this nature denotes an email. And I really admired the way that it was laid out. This is the way that the texts are laid out. And I think that it's very innovative to be able to incorporate texts and do it well, because texting is a very common mode of communication in this day and age. To be able to tell a story in that format rather than the traditional paragraph structure, I think really speaks wonders, and I thought that it was brilliantly executed. We also get a great deal of interaction with Anna and her grandmother, who still lives in Poland, refers to her as Babci, which is Polish for grandmother. I feel that the characters in this book are especially genuine. I think that they're very well fleshed out, and I think they really are perfectly flawed and also perfectly complicated. And I think that is very important when putting together a great work. The complications deal with a lot of internal complications, be it due to peer pressure, confidence, or feelings that they're just not being supported. Even the most popular and those that look like they're the most perfect, even they have complications, and that is a true reflection of not just the community within a school, but in society as a whole. And I highly encourage people to read What Happened to Rachel Riley. And I gave it a perfect 5 stars, because I think that this will help readers of all ages strengthen their knowledge and strengthen their empathy. Now I wanted to go into a more discussion-like aspect, which I'm doing it now because it's subject to spoilers, and those that do not want to be spoiled and would rather read the book first should go ahead and do so first. But one of the major themes is mentioned right within the publication information, and that pertains to sexual harassment. The major reason that surrounded the issues pertaining to the disaster involving the award ceremony that ended in a barn burning at the venue, as well as a food fight and a fight at the winter dance, pertained to a game that was being played among the male students where they would be scored for touching the rear ends of female students, and they would get points based off of the attraction and popularity of each student. And there were a lot of complications within that as well, where some of them went along with it perfectly fine, didn't mind because they felt that that was the best way to get at it, whereas others took it more personally, but weren't able to communicate it properly. I thought that they did a great job being able to depict each of the aspects, be it the fact that there are going to be people that are just obnoxious about it. There's others that go along with it on the basis of peer pressure. There's that aspect that not all males have that kind of desire. And I think the one that really sticks out the most is the fact that what is implemented to resolve the issue still needs a lot of work and is probably always going to need a lot of work. I think that one of the concerns when it comes to sexual harassment policies is that they either take on a general extremity or they don't do enough. There are different forms as well, because you have the physical harassment, you have the verbal harassment, and they can be measured based off of degrees, as well as the intent of the individual. When it comes to low-degree instances such as making a comment on someone's body part, or what's called locker room talk, some of these things can be handled with just kindly asking them to stop and not to do it. If it becomes continuous, then you need to get somebody, you need to report them to a superior who in turn will take action. And they need to take action immediately. Things of that nature on the first offense should be able to be resolved with a warning, and then extreme cases will result in detention and suspension and so on and so forth. Physical harassment should be automatic action. Automatic consequential action. And the more extreme the case, the more extreme the consequence. I think that it's better to say that any kind of action can lead up to expulsion in the event that it becomes incredibly heinous. I think that it's the way that they resolve things and having everybody give their input, people taking responsibility, and then at the end realize that it's not necessarily, it's always going to need work in order to be resolved properly. The very last scene that takes place at the basketball game really covers that. Somebody's still engaged in actions of harassment, which at this point they're ripping bra straps rather than touching rear ends. But there's others that have changed their course and are now becoming upstandards. But the way that it was interpreted, we don't necessarily know. But the best way for anybody to make their community a better place is to simply be a kind person. it all leads back to being a kind person, and as a good measuring stick, follow the golden rule, as in doing unto others as you would want others to do unto you. And just before you take the step, before you decide to do something that may make someone uncomfortable, stop and think as to whether or not, if they were to do it to you, how would you feel? Would you be uncomfortable? And I think that if more people stopped, thought, and put themselves in the other person's position, then I think that the communities, society, and the world would be a much better place. One thing that stuck out to me was a quote from page 146, when Anna was interviewing Kaylee, who was one of the popular students, for her podcast. Kaylee made a thought-provoking comment about history, and it said, and I quote, "But it's kind of like Miss Odell said in Social Issues. History is just people making mistakes and then sometimes trying to fix them over and over and over." Which I sometimes agree with, but I think that the better way of putting it is that history is often people primarily in positions of power making bad choices and deciding whether or not they want to fix these choices, depending on whether or not it will benefit them. I think that those that are in power or looking to obtain power are looking to create problems that they feel that they have the solution to. It's kind of like Superman creating his own disaster and his own villain, and then coming out and promoting himself as being the solution to that problem. We see that in politics all the time. The last observation that I wanted to point out is Swinarski is one of quite a few that referred to Robert Frost's The Road Not Taken as the road less traveled, which a lot of people call it the road less traveled. It is the road not taken, for the record. That was probably the biggest gripe that I had, and it's such a small, minor one that the impactful aspects that made this book heartfelt, heartbreaking, honest, and even hilarious in some aspects. It was just so raw, and I'm just going to keep recommending this book, especially to those that feel that they need greater knowledge and information on the subject matter, but also knowledge and information to think about, because this really makes you think critically. And I highly recommend that people check this out and read it. I would be happy if this book won the Newbery Medal in January of 2024. Thank you for tuning into this video. I hope you check out some more videos from our channel. If you like what you see, please subscribe. And if you really like what you see, please support us on our Patreon, for the money that we make will allow us to provide you, the viewer, with even more great content. For now, and as always, I encourage you to keep reading.